Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSPmagazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Marco.
Sean.
So before I press the red button, I always ask you, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm already there.
You say yes, and then I press the red button. This time I'm going to ask you again, are you ready?
And I'm going to say, I'm already there.
Pressed.
I am super ready, super pumped, already there in my head. And by there, I mean London. I'm so excited.
That's right.
I already said that on our first episode. I'm going to say it again, and then I'm going to say it again and again and again every time that we do one of our chats on the road or chats on the cloud. I don't know how we decided to call this one yet, but it's whatever we talk about as we get closer
chats on the water.
To chats on the water. Oh yeah, we were talking about floating and swimming to the UK, which I kind of I cut that across that idea.
Yeah, I don't think we'll survive that trip. But the reason I ask about readiness, and I know you, and I know how we operate, and I can confirm, and I see how you're. For those watching, I can see that you're confident in your readiness to have this conversation. That's not always the case for one or the other of us, and because of life, because of the topic, because of surrounding elements, we're not always ready. And I think it's an interesting point, especially when we're talking about cybersecurity. And this is in connection to Infosecurity Europe in London coming up here in June. And there's a speaker, Ian Hill, who's joining us. Thanks for being part of this, Ian.
Thank you very much.
And you're doing a quick presentation on the topic of readiness, and then having a panel discussion to dig deeper into that with some folks. And I found it interesting that we talk about being ready, right? I think we all, and the reason I asked Marco that question, I think we think we're ready, and when asked, we say we're ready, but are we really ready? And when it's really important, I mean, a conversation like this, yes, this is an important conversation, but when we're talking about protecting critical infrastructure or healthcare systems or financial institutions, being ready is pretty important, right? And it's not, I presume, not just a feeling, though the feeling I'm sure has a role to play. So I'm excited to get into this with you, and we're not going to give anything away from your session. We want people to join you there in London to partake and engage. Before we do that, though, Ian, a few words from you about who you are, your current role, and why this topic at Infosecurity.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So my name is Ian Hill. My current role is Director of Information and Cybersecurity at Upp Corporation. We are a big regional broadband provider, provide fiber to the home in the East Anglia and Lincolnshire areas of United Kingdom. I've been in InfoSec for some 25 years plus, senior roles, both in global companies and local companies. And my role here at Upp, we're pretty much a startup moving towards scale up. So for me, it's quite a refreshing job because I'm able to build the cybersecurity posture pretty much from the ground up. I'm not inheriting any legacy. So I was really excited about this role because, it gives me the opportunity to sort of start from base with my ideas and strategy to develop. I mean, it's only a small company. It's only got 170 employees, but it's expanding very rapidly to be a premier fiber to the home broadband provider in the east of England.
So clearly in your role, you have to be ready, right? But you also have to help your team be ready, and you also have to present that readiness to your executive staff and perhaps even the board, that you're ready for what might come, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I was talking about this particular subject, it's really about so I was going to start off with asking a question, and this is you'll see where I'm going with all this. I was going to ask the question or put a statement on the screen, and I think it's quite relevant for pre-discussion, is that compliance doesn't give you good security, but good security will give you compliance. Discuss. And basically, I'd like to talk about that, because when you talk about readiness and you talk about building a cyber strategy, there's often different schools or different views of coming at it. And in my experience, small and large companies, I've often found that the technical operational side of cybersecurity can often bang heads, if you like, with the GRC, the compliance side, because they see things from an ISO 27001 perspective. They don't necessarily see it from the cybersecurity perspective. I'm not saying compliance. You definitely need to have compliance and GRC and risk management, all that sort of stuff. But where I want to discuss and get some interesting ideas and views is you shouldn't have compliance driving your cybersecurity strategy. Does that sort of make sense? Because you could end up going down the wrong road.
Not only makes sense, but it makes you think, because Sean went. I went to. I'm ready to go to Infosecurity Europe. I'm ready to have this conversation, and he went kind of pretty philosophical there, because you can just state that you're never ready until you decide what is that makes you ready, right? It's kind of like an ideal. Is as you get closer to that ideal from a philosophical perspective, the ideal get away from you. So the readiness, with especially the change of technology and cybersecurity, it's never there. But you need compliance, in my opinion, or rules, or anyway, a set of checks that says, well, ideally, philosophically, we're never going to be ready, but are we ready enough now? So who makes that decision?
Well, I think they need to go hand in hand. So in a mature company, you need the cybersecurity, the technical and the operational and the strategic side of implementing all the controls and what have you. They need to sort of align and work together with compliance. But where I like to sort of put it in a particular way, you get some companies that say, for example, right, we're gonna get ISO 27001. That's going to look good on our letterheads, and that's going to look good for our sales and stuff like that. So right, here's ISO 27001. What do we need to do? We need to do that. We need to do that. We need to do that. Whereas on the other side of the fence, you're saying we've got a good security posture. We've used SAPSA and things like that. Right, let's do 27001. Here's 20001. Okay, yes. Do you get the idea? And that's the sort of trying to balance it up.
Yeah, you just can't rely just on that. That's the message. Don't just check the list.
Exactly, and that's the question I have for you. And I don't know if you have a chance to connect with your peers throughout the UK and in Europe and in the US. I find, and maybe I'm just not having the conversations with the people in the US that talk about ISO 27001, but I seem to hear it much more as a talking point in Europe and in the UK. Do you find that's true? And if so, why do you think that is?
I think there's a number of reasons. So one particular reason is that a lot of public body contracts now dictate that ISO, that the company that is providing them the services is ISO 27001 certified. So, you know, if you want to do business for a lot of public bodies here in the UK, they dictate that. But also, I think it is also generally more popular as well, because in the UK we also have a sort of entry level certification called Cyber Essentials, and also it's little sister or bigger sister rather, Cyber Essentials Plus, and they are a stepping stone to 27001, because when the NCSC put together Cyber Essentials as a standard, it was very much a lot of that was taken from ISO 27001. Of course, look at the history. ISO 27001 was an old British standard, BS 7799. So it's been around a lot longer here in England as a British standard, and was then adopted by the International Standards Organization as 27001. So yeah, there's a couple of things really, history, and also that it's very much seen in the UK as evidence that you're managing information security properly.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up on that with one of the points in the panel, I believe it is, some of the talking points, is this idea of responsibility, discipline, and flexibility. And I think Marco kind of touched on this a little bit, where you kind of need to know where you're going to go. And I kind of touched on it, the path to get there. But then in reality, the path often changes, right? Threats change, the technology change. Another point you make is clouds and networks and APIs and all these things, business requirements, they all change how you tackle that path and how you follow that path and remain flexible along the way. So any thoughts on that point?
Yeah, you know, absolutely. And again, just on the standards and things, you know, if you follow standards, the threat landscape is changing all the time. It's far faster than the standards can change. When you look at things like PCI DSS and 27001, they split change every 5 or 6 years. And a lot can happen in 5 or 6 years in our industry as well. But absolutely, you know, when you're developing a cybersecurity posture and team, you have to be agile. And one of the things that I found, certainly in the last few companies, where you've traditionally had a very sort of siloed, closed shop cybersecurity strategy and team. You know, the cyber team, there's those guys, those living in the black room, and they send out diktats, and you mustn't, you know, you have to do what they say, and things like that. And it's very, to a certain extent, that old school dark arts cyber silo mentality is being broken down, and we're finding that you're having a much more federated capability. And one of the things I like to do in the business I've been involved in, and certainly the one we're doing at the moment, we're having a small cyber team and a much more federated cyber capability amongst the subject matter experts and the technical teams and that across the business. So you've got your network guys and your IT guys and things like that, and transfer responsibility and ownership for the security in their areas, but obviously federated. So you still got the cyber team and the CISO still managing and keeping track of it, but you know, by transferring ownership and responsibility, you sort of get a much bigger, if you like, cyber team by proxy. And I found, and you have to have that, because you know, the technology we're working with now is very complex, and the subject matter experts in those areas know their technologies. And if you encourage them to understand the security of those technologies and have ownership of that, you're going to be in a much better position than having some sort of dark arts siloed cyber team who think they know everything. Does that make sense? And I think it's part of the adaptation and the more agile development of the cyber world.
And
yeah, well,
definitely speaks to the responsibility as well. Right? If you share that responsibility, then strength in numbers comes into play.
Well, I'm glad you said world, because we were talking before we start recording on how excited we are to go in such a great event, and how a lot of people come there, not only from Europe and from a lot of different parts of the world. We're going to come from the US. We know a lot of companies are going to be there, huge exhibitor directory and hall in the new Excel place. So standards can be something for you, and standards can be something else when you come from another country where you had different regulation. So the big question is, in a world, as you said, the world, where we all need to work together. There are no boundaries in cybersecurity. Unfortunately, we learn that every day.
Yeah.
That flexibility that you're talking about, it will come together. It has to come together when you work internationally with others. So with that in mind, your perspective on it, and also what do you expect to be kind of like the theme and the conversations that are going to happen this year, maybe on the floor there during the event?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, because as you rightly say, Infosecurity Europe is an international event. Particularly, you get sort of a lot of visitors from Europe, and having worked for a global company that was based out of Europe, I have experience of how attitude to cybersecurity, cultural differences, and in differences in interpretation of standards and things causes challenges. So just a classic example. I remember trying to implement some new technology across a global company, and we had all sorts of challenges with in Germany, because they have some of the tightest privacy laws and things like that, quite a bit different, even though they adopt GDPR like everybody, like all the rest of Europe, but they have their own sort of German state laws, which are very, very tight. So it does, when you're trying to develop a cybersecurity strategy in a global company, it does give you challenges like that. But again, you have to sort of compensate for those challenges, and where necessary, you have to create a certain level of, if you like, commonality for the general security strategy, but certain level of segregation where there are elements within a certain country of standards or a culture or something like that that need to be different. And so, again, you're striking the balance. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is protect the business. So you still have that common base and common goal, but achieving that goal within different countries, you have to sort of walk the minefield of the local laws and cultural things. So it is what it is. These challenges exist, but you're absolutely right, Marco. We live in a global world. The enemy is out there, and we are, everybody I've worked with, particularly in the national companies, understand that. They understand that, the enemy's out there, and that, we need to work together. I think, more and more cooperation globally is going to have to happen. I think this gets much more into more philosophical areas about, cooperation and sharing of information. And I think, as time goes on, we're going to be forced down that road, that we have to share more and collaborate more. Just the nature of the threat landscape, the emerging threat landscape.
Yeah, and I have to say, as a comment on this, that again, events like this, other important event in the industry, are offering this platform for everybody, for people from different part of the world, to really have conversation that maybe are not as structured they could be when you are talking business from one company to another, or a government level, but openly share and maybe get ideas while you are interacting one another, listening to talk and presentation like the one that you have, and like the many others. Sean, there's a lot of great talk and topics coming from this year event.
There are, certainly, and then I want to give Ian, I want to give you a chance to kind of describe the two-part session that you have going. But what what I like about the second part, where it's a group discussion, if you will, is you have a fellow industry person from another telco joining you, right? So perhaps a competitor in the market, but a cohort in fighting fighting the bad actors, and having good discussion on this. I love that there's a professor from University of Nottingham, and also somebody from compliance. So it's not just protecting the systems, but you mentioned enemy earlier, Ian. Sometimes the enemy is ourselves in our business, and the way we define and develop our processes, and the way we use the information we collect, most specifically the customer information. So tell us a little bit about the format of your first slide, and the thought-provoking conversation you have there, and then the follow-up conversation with this group.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's going to be just like a 10-minute presentation to start with, and really just discuss, as I say, the security doesn't give you good supply, compliance doesn't give you good security, but security gives you good compliance, and start with that, and then just start with a few slides, and really sort of going down and explaining going down that route and explaining the sort of two sides of the argument. And where I want to do, the intention is to, if you like, put both sides of the argument, compliance-led or not, 10 slides or so, give some examples. But what I want to do is really sort of incite discussion, and I want to get people talking, because I think ultimately the aim is to find the common ground in the middle, to say, yeah, we need both, but how do we get both to work together in harmony for the good of protecting the business? So I think then when we go into the discussion and the panel side of things, it's we've got a compliance person, professor, and I'm from a technical background. So really, and obviously it's audience engagement as well. That's the whole purpose of this. It's not just about, 4 people sitting on stage talking. It's the whole idea of this at Infosec, and this new way of presenting is getting the audience to be part of the discussion, getting involvement. And I think that's very positive, because ultimately, I want to find out, and I'd like to understand some of the audience points of view. They're all professionals. The people that attend Infosec, are all professionals. So it'd be interesting to draw on their experiences and their understanding how they do things, and have a proper roundtable discussion on it. Ultimately, to find out where is the common ground.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing, and Marco and I were there a few years back, before we couldn't be there for a couple of years, and we found the event to be just that, very, very open and collaborative and engaging, to where people from everywhere can have conversations and agree to disagree, and find those ways forward to that common ground, as you described. And so I want to say that your sessions, Ian, are on Wednesday on the keynote stage, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday, the 21st of June.
Right.
So that's the second day in, keynote in the morning there. And go ahead.
Wednesday's the best day.
That's right.
Always the best day.
Yeah, you're not biased. That's right. No, it's gonna be really good, and I'm excited to see that and hear some of the engagement from the audience and the panel. And it's one of many topics with amazing speakers. We're actually gonna speak to some of the other keynotes as well, like Kellan Arzari, and look at the state of InfoSec in UK and Europe, and from that perspective. And I don't know, Marco, we have like 20 folks we're looking to line up.
Yeah, and also it's not just about cybersecurity. I mean, we were talking with the organizer on our first conversation, which I invite everybody to listen to, because you get a more general overview of what's going on. There is one of the headline speakers, Michael Johnson. So if we can catch him, and I'm making a joke here because it runs,
That's right.
or at least it used to run really fast. It'll be a lot of fun to be able to talk to him. So I'm hoping he will be here on the show as well. So yeah, a lot's going on, and we're going to be there. We're going to be here before having another conversation, and then on the floor. And yeah, the excitement is real. I hope we can transmit it to everybody. Stay tuned and follow everything
tech,
we do.
a lot of innovation, a lot of people, a lot of conversations, and excited to be part of it. And
I was going to say, I think one of the reasons, what we look at the reasons why do people attend Infosec, and the conversations I've had, a lot of the time they have problems. These are Infosec professionals. We've got problems. So Infosec is a big collaboration and collection of vendors and professionals and things like that. And I often find that those people attending Infosec are looking for answers. They want to talk to people. They want to see the vendors. They've got problems and they're looking for the answers. And I think Infosec is a great sort of collection and coming together where people can find answers. I think that's a real strength of it.
Yep. And I think, Ian, people like you, and I want to thank you for your contributions to the event, because it's people like you and your fellow panelists that get folks to think about the question: do they even have a problem? Do they know they have a problem in the first place? Because if you're only seeking answers to what you think you have, this kind of goes back to the beginning. What are you ready for, right? Yeah. If you're ready for the things you know you have to deal with, you might be ready. But if you don't know about the unknown, you might not be as ready as you think. I
think so, and I think one of the topics I'm pretty certain will come out a lot will be about AI. This is obviously with all the GPT-4 and stuff like that. I see a lot of chatter in the news feeds and forums. Everyone's suddenly talking about AI, and I think AI will be a big topic of discussion at Infosec Europe this year.
Yeah, I'm surprised we went 26 minutes without mentioning it.
I'm betting my money on the ChatGPT and AI buzzword. Yeah, my money are on that.
Yeah. So many thoughts on that. We don't have time to get into
No, we don't have time now. That's why we'll talk about it later.
We can have a pint or something, Ian, when we're there in London and get into it. Well, listen, excited for the event. Thrilled to have you on the show, Ian. Excited to hear your session on Wednesday there, the best day of the event, evidently. And for those listening, there'll be links to the event, links to Ian's profile. You connect with him there, his sessions, of course. And we invite you all to stay tuned. Many more conversations coming here from Infosecurity Europe in London 2023. And if you're there in London, hope to see you there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and this story made you think, then share ITSPmagazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.